Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Zebra Marketing Show. And today we're going to be talking about follow up and how good is your follow up? How consistent is it? Do you follow up with every lead? Most of us probably know just because we're busy. We have other things going on, we have client relationships to attend to. You want to make sure you keep the customers that you have happy and we don't always have time. People are busy, we are busy, and I don't know about you, my inbox is full every morning with requests and things I need to do and people I need to talk to and meetings and this and that. And yeah, it can be a challenge. If we need to be the ones doing all the work to follow up, that can become pretty difficult. And I'm pretty sure that if drop a one in the chat if you've ever struggled with keeping your follow up consistent, or if you've ever not followed up with a lead and then the deal went cold. Drop a one in the comments. And if you drop a one in the comments, you're not going to be the only one. This is a very common problem. This is experienced by all types of businesses all across the board. And, what are we going to do to take some of that burden off and make sure that we have consistent follow up with our customers and with our leads? So we're going to be having this discussion today. If you find it valuable, if this is helpful to you, please like, comment, ask a question. I will be back to check the comments and answer your questions later. So if you do have a question, please drop it in the comments and I will be back to respond. If you are finding this conversation valuable, please share with your network that we can reach more people and be able to help more people set up systems in their business so they can be successful. I am offering a complimentary session today. If you would like to brainstorm how your business could implement a strategy to help keep your follow-up more consistent, then drop the word follow up in the comments and I will tell you how we can hop on a call together. All right. So my name is Laura Camrath, and I am the CEO of Zebra Marketing. And we help companies who have a technology or cybersecurity or IT solution to be, they may have something amazing to bring to their market, but they, that's what they do best. And they may not have the best systems in place or be keeping up with all these changes going on in our modern digital marketing and general world. And so we help companies put in place systems so that they can be more successful, so that they can be consistent in their marketing and in their follow-up, and that they can grow their business. All right. So, okay. So let's take a hop over here. All right, so let's talk about why most deals are lost after the first message. Most leads don't say no. They just stop responding. Have you ever had that? You think, oh, this is going to be a great deal. We can really help these folks. And then they ghost you. And, maybe you think, okay, well, I guess they just weren't really that interested, or they were looking at another solution, or, there's all kinds of things that we might think, why did they stop responding? But the truth is often far more costly than that. A lot of us just think, okay, they're probably not interested, or maybe it wasn't the right time, or maybe they found a different solution, all kinds of things. Um, you know, Maybe they come to the website and download something, maybe they fill out a form, maybe they reply, and then, you never hear back. Or, you know, so the problem is that the silence isn't necessarily rejection. They're doing their thing. And we as humans, we like to make up all kinds of things about what somebody else is thinking, why someone else is doing what they're doing, and we're making all of that up. As human beings, that's what we do. In our family relationships, that's what we do. Oh, my son, he blah 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 thinks this about me. But we don't know what somebody else thinks. We don't know what somebody else, why somebody else does what they do. um and so, silence is not rejection, it's just a gap. And the gap is there because, they are also a busy person. They are also going about their business. They are trying to solve a problem, and they're looking at the possible solutions that can help them solve their problem. And, they're busy. So they're going to prioritize what they prioritize. And the challenge for you is how to get on their radar, how to show them, even in their busy day, that you're the one, your company is the one that can help them. So we assume all kinds of things when we don't hear back. Oh, they weren't ready. Oh, they went with someone else. Oh, they probably didn't have budget. Or maybe it wasn't, just wasn't the right time. And so, you know, we don't know where they went. So we just kind of put it in the sort of abandoned file. And the thing is, what's really happening is, they're still researching probably. They still are trying to solve the problem. They want to solve the problem if there is a problem. And so they're looking at alternatives. They're looking at their options. They're researching. They're building internal buy-in with stakeholders. They're talking to their team about why this is important. They're waiting for budget cycles or timing windows, and they're prioritizing other fires before returning to you. So, there's all kinds of things that they're doing, and silence oftentimes means not yet, not no. And, you know, the problem is that we just assume, oh, it's not happening because it didn't happen right now. And especially in the B2B arena, we have long sales cycles, and long sales cycles require consistent visibility. And trust is not built through a single touch point, it compounds over time. Through repeated relevant exposure that keeps your brand front of mind throughout the buyer's journey. So, they used to say that it took like 7 touch points before a buyer was willing to do business with you. I think it's even more now, like 10 to 12, or even more. Some people suggest 20. And the thing is, trust building cycle. People, when they're going to spend a bunch of money with you, they want to know that it's the right thing. They want to know that they want to trust that they're going to really get the risk. And they need internal buy-in. They need budget. They need their team to be on board with the decision. And so, there's a lot of balls in the air. And, the trust is built over time. So, they may reach out, or you reach out to them. There's a first contact made, and there's a spark of interest. Then maybe there's a follow-up email, there's a check-in, there's a call. But maybe then, you want consistent visibility. So what happens? Because you can't just constantly be emailing them. You can't constantly check in. If you call them every day, they're going to be like, who is this weirdo? So, what else are you doing that sort of builds that trust in between the conversations? And then when it's the right time for them, they raise their hand and they say, let's get started. Um, but if the only thing you're doing, oftentimes we reach out once and there's like a large percentage of sales opportunities that only receive a first contact. And if they're only receiving a first contact, there's all these other steps missing. They're not getting follow up, they're not getting trust building content or nurturing, what we call nurture. And so if you don't send a message, if you don't call, if you don't follow up, obviously it's going to be a challenge to convert customers. And, even though we have good intentions and we want to follow up and we want to do a good job, things come up and our teams get busy and a new lead comes in, then an existing customer has an issue, and before you know it, they're paying attention to an existing customer rather than working on new leads. And so momentum stalls when that happens. And so what is the strategy for ensuring that those opportunities don't stall out or go cold or not get followed up with? So opportunities rarely just, vanish. Like they're not hanging up on you and telling you that, like, how dare you call me about this. I mean, most of the time, maybe, I mean, my boyfriend and I call it spamula when, random people call us on the phone and maybe we do hang up on them. But like, in a B2B sense, you know, they know that your job is to talk to prospective customers, so it's not that they're like angry at you. It's just that there wasn't enough contact. There were cracks in the follow up. And cumulatively over time, if enough leads are not getting followed up with, that could be a big stack of opportunities that haven't been engaged. And it's not that they said no, they just weren't given a reason to stay. And they weren't convinced to become a customer. The trust wasn't built. The timing changed. Maybe, the budget shifted, a new priority emerged, but you didn't know. You didn't know what was going on with them. And you didn't have an opportunity to influence it either. So momentum was lost. Every day without a touch point is a day that your competitor gains ground. And if they are doing this right, then you're missing the boat. So visibility gaps are competitive visibilities. I mean, sorry, competitive vulnerabilities. So even if you're not following up, the research continues. The customer is still looking to solve their problem, and they will keep looking until they get the problem solved. So either they're going to solve it with you or they're going to find someone else to solve the problem. So they are still looking for a solution. So they're reading competitor content. They're going to other companies' websites, looking at their solutions, maybe reaching out to competitors. They're reading case studies. They're, reading testimonials, reviews, case studies, whatever, companies have, trying to see, are we really going to get the results that are promised? Because at the end of the day, if they're planning to spend a lot of money with someone, they want to feel a sense of trust that what is promised is what's going to be delivered. And so how do they find that out? From other people's case studies. What, they want to know, did other people do this and did it work? And they want to believe that what you say you're going to do is really what you're going to do, because, if they're making the decision, their neck is on the line. their budget is on the line, all of those things. And of course, they want their company to be successful. So, they want the best solution. And, they're continuing to evaluate other solutions. And, the people who get in early, they're the ones who are going to have the most influence, and the ones who continue to follow up consistently, they're the ones who are going to have the most influence and the most trust building in order to influence that decision making process at that customer's company. So, whoever stays the most visible, remains consistently present, remains top of mind, ultimately, a lot of times they're the ones who are going to win the deal. So, why does follow up matter more than ever? Modern B2B buyers have higher expectations than ever before. They're comparing vendors not just on product, but on how responsive, helpful, and consistent they are throughout the buying journey. They're, you know, People want to know, what is it going to be like to work with these folks? And they are going to judge what it's going to be like to work with you, how professional you're going to be, how much you're going to take care of them based on how you took care of them in the sales process. Were you responsive? Were you consistent? Were you helpful? Um, did you educate them? Did they understand the offer? Did they understand their options? And did you take the time? Um, and the companies that stay visible stay relevant. Uh, the companies that stay relevant win deals. And most teams, they just can't follow up consistently manually, doing everything. It's a lot. And, depending on human consistency, um, we're just human. That's it. We have families, we have uh, vacations we have to take sometimes. We need to take weekends off. We need to go home at night. We need to go to lunch. We have other responsibilities. And so we can't be there 24/7 all the time consistently. It's just not possible. So, what happens when you're not available or your team is not available? Um, and what happens to those leads who are not getting followed up with? Are they getting followed up with? And are your salespeople overloaded? How much are they doing? Are they doing the lead generation and the lead follow-up? Can you automate something? Can you take things off their plate? Or do you assume you're just going to have to hire more people? What if you could solve the problem without having to continue to hire more people? The optimal follow up window closes fast. People are making their decisions, and you're either going to be in their consideration set. What we call it in marketing is, who are they considering? That's the consideration set, the set of options they are considering. And you're either in there as an option or not. And, if you didn't really make it onto their radar, or you didn't follow up consistently, or they didn't get the information from you that they needed, then you may not be making it in. And a lot of us blame effort. We just need to pay better attention to this. We need to try harder. The team needs to focus more, all kinds of things about why the humans need to be better at this. But it's not really about the effort, and it's about systems. And without a reliable follow-up system, leads fall through invisible cracks. No process enforces the next step. Results depend on individual heroics, just how good is the person? How dedicated are they? Pipeline becomes unpredictable. And, oftentimes, like, the people want to do a good job. They're trying their hardest. They're making an effort, but there's no system. And, so the people can be much better supported. The people can work much better when they're working in a system. And High performing teams build follow up systems. The best sales organizations don't rely on individual willpower to drive follow up. They engineer systems that make consistent outreach the default, not the exception. So you make sure every lead is contacted. No inquiry goes unanswered. Automation ensures the first touch happens every time on time. And every inquiry is tracked. Every lead, every touch point, every reply is logged and visible, giving the team full situational awareness. And every opportunity stays active. Deals don't go cold by accident. Structured cadences keep conversations alive until the buyer is ready. And consistency beats intensity every time. So, what does a modern follow up system even look like? A world class follow up system isn't just a single tool, it's a coordinated infrastructure where every channel works in concert to keep buyers engaged at every stage of the journey. So, email follow up sequences. If somebody makes an inquiry on your website, what happens? Is there a response? Because it's shown that when an inquiry comes in, if that prospective customer gets an immediate response, they're more likely to do business with us. Just by nature of receiving that immediate response, feeling like they were acknowledged. And, so you can automate a personalized email that triggers based on behavior and timing, and not having to, wait 3 hours for a sales rep to be available to get back to them. Even just an acknowledgement, we've received your email or we've received your message. A member of our team will get back to you within 24 hours and we look forward to talking with you. Just acknowledging them. And the other thing that I see companies maybe not doing so well sometimes is we are in, when we're B2B companies, a lot of us are going to trade shows and events. We may be exhibiting at trade shows and events, and we don't have a plan for follow-up. And the plan for follow-up should start before we go to the event. And we can now write an email. You can write an email talking about, thanking them for coming by the booth, or thanking them for the conversations at the event, because you may meet people who didn't come by the booth, or you might be just walking around. But, talking about your attendance at the conference and the conversations you had, and then giving them a little information about who you are and asking them, letting them know that should they ever need help with what you help people with, that you would love to have a conversation. And so this just puts you on their radar. And it's also courteous. People feel acknowledged and taken care of when you are professional and consistent in your responses to them. And so, planning an email and writing an email and having it prepared ahead of time before you even get to the conference. And then, if you get a CRM, CRMs like High Level, or we have a Zebra Growth Hub CRM that's a custom CRM built on High Level. And I'm sure some other CRMs have card scanning apps. And you can literally scan the cards if you collect business cards. And I know, some of you have the QR codes on your name tags that, you can scan people as they come by your booth. But if you don't have that, you can scan business cards. And, that night you could send a message thanking them for the conversations you had and at the event. And so, it just makes people feel like, wow, these guys are on the ball and these folks care and they're ready to help. Text messages also have a much higher open rate than email inboxes. And so while you don't want to obviously be annoying, um, relevant, timely text messages can be highly effective. And thinking about where that might come in handy and including in the sales process, it might be easier for a client to take a text message from you than take a call or answer an email. So, considering that as an option as well. And then CRM workflows and task automation, structured pipelines that auto assign tasks, trigger alerts. So, do you have a CRM with a sales opportunity pipeline that is set up to mirror your actual real sales cycle and trigger alerts? You can even trigger email automations when customers get to a certain point in the sales process. Say they've received a proposal for you and they're considering it. Maybe you have an email sequence that sends them a series of a couple emails while they're in the consideration phase about, maybe it's sending them case studies about, incredible results you've had, or sending, which builds trust, obviously. Maybe it's talking about your incredible customer service. Maybe it's talking about all the great things that people love about working with you as they're considering whether or not to accept you as their partner. And as well as, you can trigger alerts to your sales team. So, are they going in there and, when they have a conversation with someone and they say, hey, can you follow up with me at the end of June? Do they go in there and put a task in for themselves that says follow up with this person at the end of June? And then are they actually doing it? And, as a manager, if you have this system, you can check if they're following up, if they're making notes, and you can have visibility into what's going on. And then AI chat and voice, these ever new and ever helpful tools that we have, which can be trained with your knowledge base so they can answer questions. You can add FAQs. So if you frequently get questions from customers about how come my screen is dark? Oh, well, have you tried turning it off and turning it back on again? you know, but you can train it with the FAQs that are relevant to your customers. And so if they're calling into your business after hours, instead of getting a runaround with an automated, voice service that says press 1 for support, press 2 for sales, they actually have a human like conversation on the other line that can say, oh, what are you calling in about? And if they say, oh, well, I just wanted to know more about your XYZ service. And then the voice AI will automatically, because it's AI, say, oh, this is a sales inquiry. And it will route the call to your sales department. Or it will book them into a call with one of your sales representatives so they can have a call with a human and answer their questions. So, these are incredible tools that not everyone's taking advantage of, that really can help with customer service and with sales inquiries, even customer support, to just make the experience that customers are having with you better. And, what does AI chat do? It responds instantly. It answers, it qualifies. If you know the typical questions that you need to ask to find out if a lead is qualified, the AI can answer them. And honestly, people tend to be more honest with AI than they even are with real humans, because they're like, oh, it's just an AI. It's not going to judge me. And so you can get a lot of good information from prospective customers who are chatting in with an AI. It can also book them into an appointment with your sales team. So instead of your humans having to do all of that work. The humans get on the phone when they already know the answer to the qualifying questions, so they can have an informed conversation with the person. They can have the call booked in when the human is actually available, instead of having calls coming in when they're in another meeting, or they're not available, or that person calling in gets put on hold and then they get sick of being on hold, so they hang up. How many um, opportunities could you be missing simply because somebody wasn't available at the right time to answer their call, and they got sick of waiting, or they didn't get followed up with, or they didn't get an answer, or they got put into an automated voice phone system and got sick of the runaround? This is going on every day in real businesses. And is your business one of them? If so, we can help. But I mean, I called a business recently, and an automated system answered the phone and said, "Thank you for calling. Goodbye." And just hung up on me. It didn't even put me into um, a voice, whatever they call those, answering system. And I was like, wow, they're not even getting any calls. Like, it immediately just hangs up on somebody. So, just thinking about the experience that people have when they contact your business. And, we have chat AI, and chat AI can respond, say somebody chats in, um, or, text messages the business, or chats in from Google. It can answer from numerous different points, not just from your website. So, AI chat and AI voice are incredible solutions. I know that some of the folks in B2B, they have this idea that, like, oh, AI, we can't put our customers through AI. Like, that's not, okay. Like, we have to handle the calls. We have to be the humans. But and they wouldn't stand for that, or all these different things that people say about using AI. But the truth is that the customer just wants to be supported, and if it's 10 o'clock at night and something is going on, they're having an issue, they don't want to call and get a voicemail runaround. They want to have a human like conversation, get their questions answered. And if you're able to answer as much as possible, at least they are going to feel like, um, they were supported. And, it's a lot easier for them to call and an AI tell them the solution than it is for them to go sifting through a knowledge base, trying to read every document, seeing if they can figure it out. So customer support, these tools are great for that. And if they can't answer the question, they can book somebody into a call with a human. So then at least they feel like, okay, well, I have a plan. Somebody's going to be available for me, rather than this nebulous feeling of like, well, I left a message, I hope somebody gets it, and I hope somebody responds. Nobody feels good when you're like, okay, I have an issue and I just left a voicemail and nobody's calling me back. um, you know and I had an experience with that, actually, with a vet that I took my cat to recently, and like, nobody answered the phone. And it didn't matter. There was an automated voice system, and it didn't matter who you called. Like, it didn't matter. Like, when you call, it's like, press 1 for this, press 2 for that, press 3 for that. It didn't matter what I pressed, it ended up in a voicemail. And then, like, nobody would get back to me. And that was extremely frustrating. And especially because it was my cat and she was sick, and I wanted to talk to a human. Um, and when we are feeling like we have a problem, like, oh, something's wrong, I have an issue, it needs to be solved, and I'm not getting any help, that can get very frustrating. So um, I think that AI is a great solution. I mean, you can train AI with your entire knowledge base. It can be more knowledgeable than a human receptionist would be able to be, because it has, it's like not Nero, Neo, Neo from the Matrix. You plug Neo's head into that thing, and like immediately he speaks like 100 languages. Well, that's AI. You know, it's like Neo in the Matrix. Like it just is able to be trained. Like you can train it, and instantaneously it knows the answer to whatever you've trained it with. So it's really a great solution. And if that's something that's interesting to you and you'd like to explore how that will work for your business, drop a comment below, and I would love to talk with you a little bit about how that works. You can also go to, let me see, Zebra dot is Zebra ZBRA dot live/voice AI, and that will also give you a demo that you can play with. Okay, so do you have a CRM? And CRM automation, so not just something like an emailing tool. They've got some of these are like kind of cheesy, or sometimes we have a CRM that's only contacts, like HubSpot has like a free version that just gives you so many free contacts. And in something like HubSpot, you have to buy the marketing hub. You can have like the sales hub, and you can have the marketing hub. And the thing is that when a lead comes in, if you have the marketing hub or if you have marketing automation, you can trigger automatic follow-ups. And so if somebody makes an inquiry over the website, or if they download a complimentary resource or a catalog, or your guide to how to get XYZ solution, then you don't want that like just to be the last interaction, or you don't want them then waiting like 12 hours for somebody to get back to them, or to say, oh, look, somebody downloaded something, that's nice. You want to have an automated follow-up that nurtures them. And why do we need nurture? Because most people who are looking are not ready to just buy right now. They need to build trust. They need to learn about your solutions. They need to have some sort of relationship with you so that they can form an opinion. So do you think that two people could ever get married consensually without knowing each other exists? I mean, not even like, even if it was an arranged marriage, like they cannot get married unless they know each other exist. And, so the first step is awareness. They have to, first of all, know that you're around to be able to just know that you have a solution. But just knowing you're there, that's not the end of the game. They have to form an opinion about you, and likely about your competitors, before they'll make a decision. So how do you help them form that opinion? You nurture them. You give them little tastes of what you do and how you help people. And, some people do that with, oh, we're going to mail you a brochure, or like something like that. You can email them tidbits of information, like, here's a case study about how we helped XYZ company get incredible results. People always want to hear from other people who got incredible results, because it gives them what we call reasons to believe. So they can believe, hey, if these guys got this incredible result, I can too. We can too. And So, and then talking to them about your process. Like, what do you do for people? What can they expect? And they need to know just enough about what it's going to be like to have a vision of, you know, what's this going to be like when we work together. And so they can see, like, oh, that's how it's going to work. These folks got incredible results. Um, they have the solution that we need. Maybe ultimately they get a proposal from you, and they see your, your offer and your pricing, and they assess their trust level with you. Are we going to get the results that they say we're going to get? Is the experience of working with them going to be what they are promising? And so everything that you can do along the way as they're making those decisions to help shape their belief process around, um, you know, what it's going to be like to work with you and whether they're going to get the results as promised, those reasons to believe, the more chance that you have of closing those deals. And so, a CRM with marketing automation can help trigger automated responses, automated text messages, even automated follow-ups. If you have a chat AI, and somebody text messages in over your website, and then they go cold or they stop responding, it can follow up in 24 hours, in 48 hours, in I guess is 1 hour, 24 hours, 48 hours. Hey, are you still interested? There's all kinds of things that you can do to make sure that leads are getting followed up with, even if your team is not available, or even if they are, because at the end of the day, our teams are all busy, and having a system that ensures that the follow up happens no matter what is always going to help. Oh, and the other thing I was going to say about is, do you have a sales opportunity pipeline that accurately reflects your sales process? Because, maybe if you want your sales reps to be calling the person 7 times at least before, potentially moving on, um, do you have a sales opportunity pipeline where they have to check off every one of those times that they've called, um, or sent an email? uh, do you have a sales opportunity stage that you can move a lead to when a proposal or quote is sent? um, so, and then of course, like, there's follow-up that goes on after a proposal is sent. So, does your sales opportunity pipeline accurately reflect your sales process? And um, are your salespeople using it? Because, a system doesn't work if you put up a system and they're not using it. Are there consequences for not using it? Because I have built incredible sales systems for companies before that worked great, and the management was just like, oh, they're not using it. It's like, well, what happens if they don't use it? Is there a consequence? If there's no consequence, then why are they going to use it? If they're just like, don't feel like it or whatever. So if they don't understand why they need to use it, so it's management's job to enforce the system. But first you have to have a system, and then you have to understand, you have to work with your team to make sure that they are following and using the system. The follow up builds trust over time. If you've ever seen or heard of a sales funnel, think of a funnel. At the top of the funnel is like everybody, it's the whole entire world. And then as you enter the funnel, that's when, the people who had no idea they existed become aware of each other, so that they can get married. Is the very first um awareness, like, oh, here's this brand, I know they exist now. But then but then that person has to form an opinion about you, and there's all kinds of factors that go into someone forming opinion. I mean, think of even just a brand like, for those of us in Texas, we've got Bluebell ice cream, and it's supposed to be homemade ice cream. And so I'm sure that people, when they think of, I mean, a brand, when you think of a brand takes place in the minds of a stakeholder. So a brand is an idea, and the idea is of everything that people associate with your brand, your company. If I showed a Nike symbol to 12 different people and asked them to write down everything that they think about when they think of Nike, they would all come up with something different because it's an idea. It's just what they associate with it. One person might say golf, another person might say tennis, another person might say sneakers, um, another person might have some sort of, I don't know, political association, like, oh, they have factories overseas, or, like, everyone's going to have a different thought process and belief system around a brand because it takes place in their mind. It's an idea. And so, just the same, you want to shape that idea in your customer's mind of who your company is, what your brand is. And you want to build that sense of credibility and trust in their mind as an idea. And, consistent, valuable follow up signals professionalism and expertise. And, buyers infer quality from how you treat them before the sale ever happens. So they're making a judgment on you. They're forming an opinion about you just based on the experience they're having in the sales process. And so, they're building, your objective is to build trust with them. When they trust you, they buy from you. And what is the trust about? The trust is in believing that if they work with you, they're going to get the promised results. They're going to get the promised experience. They're going to have a professional engagement, and you're going to be a partner to them. And so that's what the sales process is about. And so the more professional, the more responsive you can make your sales process, the less friction that a lead can experience. It's all leading towards closing that deal. And so, just like, visibility compounds. So every interaction, they're making a judgment about you. They're forming that idea in their mind. Like interest in a savings account, each touch point builds on the last. The cumulative effect of consistent visibility is a relationship that converts when the buyer is ready. So don't be invisible when they're making decisions. And consistency creates more conversations. So if you think about all those leads that potentially didn't get followed up adequately, how many more sales could have been made? How many more replies and touch points could have happened? How many more booked calls could those have led to? And how many more sales conversations could have occurred if you had a system in place to ensure that no leads fall through the cracks? And if you think about this kind of like a leaky bucket, especially if you're spending money on marketing and digital ads, and you're spending money to get leads in the door, and then you don't have a system for adequate follow-up, it's just like pouring money into a leaky bucket. It's leaking out the holes. And so you want to plug up those holes, and automation can help you plug those holes. so that you take some of the burden off the humans and you ensure that there's a system in place to support the humans. And this is about pressure. What most teams are doing wrong is they treat follow up like a closing tool. Oh, we're going to be aggressive. We're going to be repetitive. We're going to keep knocking on the doors. We're going to be self serving. And, nobody likes that. Nobody likes, and, you know, what great teams do differently is they treat follow up as a connection maintenance strategy. Each touch adds a little value, reinforces presence, keeps the door open until the buyer's timing aligns with yours. So it's like when you go to the supermarket and they give you a little taste of cheese, and you taste the cheese and you're like, wow, that's some pretty decent cheese. Let me get a box or a container of it. So like the supermarket is not giving away cheese because they're just nice people. They're giving away cheese because they expect that a certain number of people are going to buy enough cheese that giving away cheese is worth it. They're giving people a little taste. And that's what nurture is about, is giving them a little taste of the value that you provide, helping them solve their problem a little bit more each time. And when you do that, people give away their best stuff. You know I could give away my best stuff all day long, and that doesn't mean that a bunch of like cybersecurity, IT, or tech people are going to go out and just like immediately go implement what I do, because that's not what their job is. Like, they don't want to do that. So they would rather hire someone else. But if you give away your best stuff, they see, oh, here we go. This is what they do. This is how they help people. I mean, conversations like we're having right now, yeah, I love talking about this stuff, but obviously I'm I'm here because it gives you a little taste of the value that we provide at Zebra Marketing. It reinforces how we help people, and giving them a little taste and helping them get a little closer to solving the problem helps them imagine what it's going to be like to work with you. Like, oh, okay, so this is what they do for people. This is how they help people. Oh, these guys seem pretty good. They seem like they know what they're doing. And so every touch point is about helping the customer form an opinion of you, helping build that brand, that idea in their mind of a vision of being in a partnership with you where you're helping them solve their problems. So the goal is not to pressure buyers into a decision. It's to stay connected while their interest develops, so that when they're ready, you're already in the room. If they see you as a thought leader, if they see you as knowledgeable in this domain about this problem they're trying to solve, the more uh, confidence they feel in your ability to solve that problem, oftentimes the more you can charge. Because at the end of the day, I don't know if you've ever heard of a guy named Alex Hormozy, but he's got a value equation. And the way people think about value is, how long is it going to take me to get this result? How much effort am I going to have to put in? How quickly am I going to get the result? And that's how they're thinking about, if they think that you're going to do it better, you're going to do it more effectively, you're going to do it faster, they'll be willing to pay more, versus going with a competitor who they may not be fully confident is going to solve the problem adequately. People will pay more knowing that they're not going to have the headache, or that they're going to get something better. So, building that brand by reinforcing in the prospective customer's mind with every interaction, how you help people building that idea, building that confidence in you, that trust in their mind with every interaction. So imagining this is maybe like a company's current sequence. The lead arrives, it's a real qualified lead, and a single message is sent out. Maybe a sales rep follows up, but they don't get to it for 3 hours, or maybe 3 days, or maybe 12 hours. They're not available right now. They're in a meeting, or they're at lunch, or something's going on, or they weren't in today. So they don't respond when that lead is actually paying attention. And when that lead gets the response, they're in a meeting. They're not available. They're not in the office. And so there's silence. That lead was not paying attention at the time they received the follow-up. And so there's silence. They're not responding. Maybe they were busy and they just didn't get to it, and then they forgot they were ever interested. And so that's the end of the road, and the opportunity is lost. So this is what happens for many sales teams, and it's costing them a substantial portion of their pipeline every single quarter. The lead was real. It was a real inquiry. It was a real opportunity that had real potential revenue value, and the system failed. No conversation ended up happening. So what we would rather see is the lead arrives. They receive a multi-touch point nurture. They get a follow-up, repeated follow-up. They form an opinion about you, and they decide that it's worth having a conversation. They book a conversation. They book into a call with you, and then you're able to have a conversation and close the deal. So this is what a well-built follow-up system delivers. The same lead, the same prospective buyer, and entirely different outcomes, simply because the system kept showing up when the reps maybe weren't available, or couldn't, or weren't consistent. But they had a system. And so with the same leads, you plug the holes in the leaky bucket. You preserve your ability to build revenue out of every single lead that comes in. So imagine this. Just making small incremental improvements can create enormous gains. Because imagine if you're plugging the holes in the leaky bucket, you pour the same amount of water in the bucket, but now those holes are plugged, less water is going to leak out of that bucket, I can assure you. So, even modest improvements in conversion rates at each stage of the funnel produce compounding results across the entire pipeline. So you get a lead conversion lift, potentially 30%. You're going to get more booked meetings, because if you're having more conversations, naturally, if a certain number of conversations convert into meetings, then you're going to have more meetings. If you have more conversations, more meetings, then naturally you're going to have more closed deals. So you don't necessarily need more leads. Like, we as business owners and marketers and companies, we think, oh, well, if we want more closed deals, the problem is on the front end. We just need more advertising. We need to go to more trade shows. We need more website traffic. We need more. But we're not paying attention to what happens after the lead comes in. Once the lead comes in, that's gold. You have I'm thinking like you have a fish hooked on the line. Like, what if you got a fish hooked on the line, and then you're like, well, that's nice, I'm gonna go have a sandwich. Do you want to go have a sandwich at that point, or do you want to start reeling that guy in. I mean, my brother-in-law and my boyfriend are both bass fishermen, and I'm pretty sure they will be reeling that fish in. So, that's what you want to do. You want to make sure that maybe the human can go have a sandwich while you have systems in place to reel the fish in. But you want to make sure that that's happening. You want to make sure it is getting a follow-up, whether a human is doing it or it's an automated follow-up that gets them booked into a call that qualifies the lead and that nurtures, gives a little taste with each interaction to show how you help people and build that idea in their mind, that trust that they are going to get the results you promise and that they're going to have a good experience with you. So if you would like to see how this works, if you would like to know more about what a system could look like for you, to help you plug the holes in your leaky bucket, then drop the word follow up in the comments, and I'll show you how to get a full system like this into place that can help B2B teams who are serious about pipeline conversion to support your teams, to help your teams be more effective so you can close more deals, so you can grow the business. And most deals aren't lost in the first conversation, they're lost in the silence afterwards. Every lead that went quiet wasn't a rejection, it was a gap in your system. The companies that build consistent, automated, multi-channel follow-up infrastructure, they don't just win more deals. They win the deals everyone else abandoned. They are winning the game. And the fortune is in the follow-up. Build systems that make sure it happens every single time. Okay. All right. Well, thanks for tuning in today. If this was a helpful, useful conversation for you, then drop the word follow up, or I guess it's 2 words, in the comments, and let's have a conversation. I can, we can talk a little bit more about your company and the specific challenges you may be having, and how we can plug the holes in your leaky bucket so that you can ensure that every lead is getting a follow-up, that every lead is, having that relationship built and that trust built, and booking them into a call, an appointment, so that you can close the deal. If this has been a helpful conversation with you, please like, share, comment, drop your questions below. I will be back to answer questions. If there's somebody that who could benefit from this conversation, maybe it's someone in your sales team, definitely share this with them so that we can all benefit and work together to grow our businesses. So I'll be live here every Wednesday at 11 a.m. and we're going to talk about solving various strategic marketing problems that we all face in our businesses, and how to build systems that support our business growth, and how to automate and use all these new amazing AI solutions that are coming our way, how to make sense of that, and how to be more effective in our marketing so that we can grow our revenue and enjoy predictable hockey stick growth. My name's Laura Kamrath, Zebra Marketing. Thanks for joining me, and I look forward to seeing you next week.